Where everything is.
All right, so this is the library's Tech Tuesday on wearable devices. If Rebecca has your email, you will get a link to both the video and the slides. One of the reasons why the slides are kind of nice to have is sometimes I'll include kind of slides that during the presentation are hard to read, but later on might be useful, like a comparison table. The other reason is if we run this class again, we will use and update the current slides. So if you check this slide back in a year or so, you'll probably get updated information. Before we start this, might as well point out that we're not doctors. We're going to be talking about things like EKGs, heart rate, all this stuff that sounds like I should know what I'm talking about, and I don't. We will briefly talk about the different types of um, FDA approvedness of these devices. They've all been, approved to the level of won't cause you harm, but some of them will make claims that, while technically correct, are not, at the level that you would get at a doctor's office. So just keep that in mind. These are for general health and wellness, not necessarily taking the place of a dedicated device. The way I like to think about kind of wearables is a snapshot versus a movie. So whenever you go to your doctor once or twice a year, that's a snapshot. They get a very detailed snapshot of your life from those annual visits. But the movie is where these wearables kind of show you benefit, which is the continuous monitoring. So it allows you to establish a baseline. It's possible whenever you go to the doctor's office, you were just having a fantastic week. You ate everything correctly. You got enough sleep. So the test isn't going to, that they performed that day will not necessarily show that you were having an issue 2 months ago. So that's one of the reasons why wearables that continuously track things can be useful. So you can spot trends like your resting heart rate, and even some of these devices, they're using the data that they're pulling in AI models. So they're able to determine if you're going to be feeling sick in a few days. One of the ones I use has actually been pretty good at sending me alerts that my wife is going to have a headache later in the evening. Um, that's proven very useful. Uh, there are studies that are coming out that show the daily tracking improves doctor-patient communication as well. It allows you to go into your appointments kind of with more information. I know a lot of people have, if they've ever talked to their doctor about like the pain scale, I personally have absolutely no idea what the pain scale is. Is five like I'm uncomfortable? Is two, I'm feeling great? Is six, my head is about to explode? Like, what's the pain scale? It's different for everyone. So this kind of gives you a good ability to kind of talk about overall health with your doctor. Sleep. The main reason I personally started using wearables is just to track my sleep. Um, Kind of like people who are in the stock market, sometimes they'll only remember when they gained money and they'll forget all the losses. I think I fell into the trap of thinking, oh, well, on Tuesday I got 8 hours. So yeah, I probably had a good week of sleep. And then I'm looking at the wearable and it's saying, hey, you averaged 5 hours this week. And I know something's wrong, but I may not remember all the times when I only got 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Um, some of these will also do sleep apnea. That's been an increasingly used buzzword for a real issue that is currently, in the process of getting a little more people to understand what it is. But a lot of these devices can detect the oxygen drops, the SpO2, which indicates that your breathing stops, which sounds like a really big issue to me. And I'm surprised it wasn't talked about more when I was growing up. It also will allow you to track recovery. So you can kind of see if you're in REM sleep, which is kind of where your brain theoretically flushes itself out and feels good again, versus deep sleep, which is better for physical repairs to your body. So all of this is tracking. FDA approved versus cleared. You'll see a lot of these devices. Um, the high point is if they're FDA cleared, which means they've been proven to substantially equivalent to the medical tools. FDA approved is the hardcore gear that we're probably not going to be talking about. Things like the Apple Watch, the ECG, is FDA cleared, which means that the FDA has said, yeah, this is pretty darn good, but it is not a replacement for actual doctor products. Um, Most of these devices are going to be tacked on under general wellness, which basically means, yeah, they're kind of accurate, but don't use it as a medical device. All right, watches. Probably the first thing people think of whenever they think of medical wearables. We have a couple different watches, and I have completely incorrectly put them in two tiers just to kind of make the slides a little bit easier to read. The first tier, or part one, is the watches that will have the most features. These would include the Apple Watch, the current series is the 11, and the Samsung Galaxy Watch, the current series is the 8. So these are the ones that will have things like fall detection, the automated SOS. Um, the main thing to note is for Apple Watches, which arguably are the best wearable, those require an iPhone. And the Samsung Watch, obviously, if you read the name, it would really prefer you to be using a Samsung device. In order to access all of its features, for example, you need to have a Samsung device. So the key features are fall detection. It'll automatically call 911. One of the little things I like about these watches is you can get them in LTE versions, which means if you leave the house with just your watch, you are still able to make and receive phone calls independently of having your watch on you. The smartwatch I have does not have this feature, and it turns into a functional watch, so I can tell the time. It'll still track everything, but it won't really be able to do that much if it's not within, let's say, 30 feet of my cell phone. These watches will also be able to do the ECG heart rhythm analysis. They recently have gotten the ability to determine if you have hypertension, and they also are very useful for alarms. One of the things I've found from using my smartwatch is most of the time I just use it to start timers while I'm cooking. It works great at that, but I probably didn't need to spend hundreds of dollars for a timer. But I did, and I'd do it again. Smartwatches part two. These ones are generally less, let's say, feature rich, but they are more niche. So in this context, we're talking about OnePlus Watch 3 and Garmin Venue 4. I like to say these are probably the ones to pick if you hate charging every day. One of the things I absolutely hate about the Apple Watch is theoretically one of the things you want the watch to do is to do sleep tracking. Well, if I want my watch to do sleep tracking, I'd really prefer a device that lasts 2 or 3 days, so I don't have to charge it every single time. I don't have to remember, all right, I need to charge this after dinner so I can wear it overnight, so I can charge it by noon, so I can on and on and on. So these are ones who will have 4 or 5 days or 10, 14-day battery life. It's also kind of nice going on a trip and forgetting your watch charger and not really needing to worry about it. One of the nice things about Google Watch 3 is it runs Google's Wear OS, which gives it access to the very large ecosystem of Google wearables. If you have it in that mode, it lasts 4 to 5 days. The Garmin uses its own proprietary operating system, and it lasts for 10 to 14 days. Garmin has kind of positioned itself as the fitness option. So it has very high quality GPS. It's very good for running, biking, swimming, jumping, kind of whatever exercise you want to do. Just, that 5% better than the alternatives is kind of where it's trying to place itself. The next section is rings. So this is the newer addition to the category, primarily because of battery technology. Before, if you wanted a ring, it would be absolutely massive and kind of not look like a ring. It would be very clear that you're wearing some health device as opposed to, hey, that's a kind of normal looking ring. Just as a side note, at the very end, we have a big comparison table between all these, including pricing. So we'll probably discuss some of that there. As you can see on this slide, the rings kind of look the exact same. I tried to find each one of them comes in very varied colors. So I tried to have like different colors just to show you the spectrum. We have rose gold, gold, silver, and matte black. Part one, again, we split this up into two sections for fun. And we're going to call this the big name one. So you've probably heard of Aura Ring, or at least ads have been served to you about Aura Ring. It's probably if you want to say best, it's probably the best ring overall. And then you also have the Samsung Galaxy Ring. So these ones are very good at just kind of the set it and forget it health tracking. And most of the rings will kind of have a similar positive side. No bulky screen. You're not going to accidentally move your wrist and wake your watch up, and then it's going to blind you in the middle of the night with its white background. And they're all pretty good about sleep data. Aura has put more R&D into understanding sleep data. But the big negative for the Aura Ring is that it requires a subscription, which is, I believe, $6 a month. The other devices we're mentioning here do not require that subscription. So whenever you're thinking about the price of a device, with the Aura Ring, you kind of just can't think of the initial purchase price. You have to think of it over time. If you're going to keep this device for 2 years, that's $6 a month. That's 24 months. The price has increased. And Samsung, great integration if you already have a Samsung phone. In case you're wondering, Apple does not have a ring. The next one is battery and budget. These are a little bit cheaper. One big notable difference, I will say, is the Ringcon Gen 2 has the ability to kind of try and figure out if you have sleep apnea. Once again, sleep apnea is the thing where you admittedly, like rather alarmingly, stop breathing in the middle of the night, which is a negative thing. The other thing the Ringcon has is 12-day battery. So you can go a week and you kind of don't have to charge it. One of the negatives with having a 12-day battery life, and I speak from personal experience, is you can forget that you need to charge it because you didn't, so it's not part of your routine. These are very thin, they're light, they're unobtrusive. They're kind of convenient if you would like to monitor, but kind of don't want to think about it. Oh, and Ultra Human is another option. It kind of focuses on the circadian rhythm, which, if you're into that, is very interesting. Subscriptions, we briefly talked about it. So some of the watches, and specifically the Aura Ring, but some of the watches will have premium subscriptions. For example, Fitbit has a premium subscription, which is optional, but it gives you access to more information. The other subscription, quote unquote, I'd have you think about is if you buy a watch with LTE, then you're basically paying for another SIM card type thing from your service provider, from like Verizon or AT&T. Yep.
Hey, Tim. Can you explain what LTE is, please?
Yeah, that's just your device connecting to your carrier's satellites and radio towers. So it's what gets you internet. It's what allows the device to talk independently of your phone. The devices, and you can buy some of these with LTE or without LTE. Um, if you don't have LTE, the devices will connect directly to your phone, generally through Bluetooth. Ugh. Yeah, so subscriptions, it's a small thing. I will say, my dad has an Apple Watch with the LTE on it, and he absolutely loves it. Whenever he goes biking, he can have his watch, which does the automated fall detection. It allows him to listen to music. It tracks where he's been, how fast he goes, and if he's ever like in a situation where he needs to stop by the side of the road and buy something, it also has payment on it. So it kind of allows him to do all the things a cell phone are now required for without having to bring his cell phone along. So there are some benefits to getting that LTE connection. All right. So as an aside, whenever I was thinking about wearables, my brain somewhat translated that to uh, health in general at your house. So I just wanted to briefly mention Withings. Here are some of their products. And an example of one of their products is the body scan, which is essentially a smart scale. It does things like it detects neuropathy in feet, vascular age, and it has a better ECG than your watch will have, mainly because it's just much larger. So the device is larger, so they don't have to make compromises in order to get it to slim down in order to fit on your wrist. So if you're thinking of wearables in terms of like learning more about your health at your house, um, you can also expand that search to things or to companies like Withings in order to kind of get a device that specifically does what you want it to. So, we have a blood pressure monitor on the top right. It may not be apparent, but that's basically something you put under your mattress to determine your sleep patterns. And then on the bottom left, we have EKG, heart murmurs, and temperature. So a lot of options. The other thing is Withings goes through the process of getting all the FDA clearances to get their products approved. Data privacy, you may be wondering, what happens with all of this data? The good news is the data is stored on your device in the vast majority of these situations, um, and it is encrypted. So theoretically, no one's able to steal it. If you want to share the data with your practitioner, so with your doctor, which you are able to do, you will have to hit the share button to grant someone access. You can also share with members of your family in order for you to see their health data, them to see your health data. During 2020, there was a trend of people getting Fitbits and kind of challenging their colleagues to who can walk the most during the day. And you can do stuff like that, which can occasionally help keep you on track or keep you accountable to someone else. If you are very worried about data privacy, I would always recommend sticking to major brands. So brands that you've heard of before, like Apple, Samsung, or Garmin. They generally will have the quote unquote best security practices in place. Are there any questions before we go on wearables in general, or does anyone actually use a wearable that they particularly like? Cool,
I have
no questions.
have an Apple, but I don't know if I like it or not. I know I'm not using all the features, so
Same.
Yeah, a lot of these will have features that you never use. Some people find different features more useful than others. For me, once again, the timer is probably my most used feature on the watch. That and its ability to vibrate to wake me instead of blaring a train horn to try and get me up in the morning.
I I have an Apple 10 and I used the sleep function, but I couldn't figure out how to get it to stop giving me too much information. I mean, at 11:15, it would say, you have to go to bed in half an hour, you know? And then
You're too old for a mother.
it would say all sorts of things to me, and it was just too much information. So
Yeah,
I couldn't really figure out how to sort of pare it down. So I could wake up in the morning and see how well I'd slept that night, and compare it to the last couple of nights, which is all I'd like to do, so.
yeah. So for stuff like that,
Yeah,
the biggest thing is focus mode on the watch, which will basically tell it to stop talking to you. And then so I personally don't have a Apple device, so I'm not incredibly familiar with it. But from my understanding, at least what my wife does is she uses the Withings app with her Apple Watch, because she much prefers the Withings interface for that information. So she also found the Apple Watch to be a bit busy in terms of checking your results on your phone the next day, whereas the Withings app kind of was a little better designed for what she was looking for. So I always just like my recommendation be try something else out. But in this case, you can definitely try something like the Withings app, and see if that gives you kind of a better handle on what information is being presented to you.
because the smartphone lets you put various apps on it, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Cool.
yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So this is a short but not incredibly useful quiz, just to kind of get you thinking about what device might make sense for you if you plan on looking at purchasing anything. So you hate charging devices, then Garmin or the Ring-Con Gen 2 sounds pretty good. That's a watch and a ring. You worry about falling. Garmin and Apple Watch both have that fall detection that can automatically call 911 if you don't press the button in time. If you're waking up tired or if you snore, you can look at things that can determine if you have sleep apnea or can give you an idea if you have it, which would be the Ring-Con Gen 2 or the Samsung Watch. And if you don't want to think about the fact that you're tracking health, definitely you can look at smart rings. The best device is the one that you'll actually wear. If you find that your watch, while it has all these wonderful, nifty, amazing features, if you forget to charge it, or if it keeps getting caught on your coat or shirt cuffs and you kind of find that to be very annoying, so you stop wearing it all the time, then a ring might be the way to go. Here's a quick kind of a ring versus watch, which fits your life section. The rule of thumb would be the attention rule. The watches will want your attention. They'll give you notifications. The screen will turn on and get bright. They'll buzz, they'll vibrate, they'll make noise. Whereas rings kind of respect your attention. There's no screens, no beeping. It just kind of exists and it's invisible. Unless you are, from personal experience, unless you are grabbing something tightly, like a barbell or kind of lifting up a backpack or moving stuff, you're going to forget that the ring's on your finger, just like you would with a traditional metal wedding band. The charging reality, a lot of the nice watches with a whole bunch of features, you have to charge it at least once a day. And then rings are more of a weekend charge situation, where they'll last a good week before they need to be charged again. they also generally come with a, at least the more expensive ones will come with kind of like a charging case. So you don't even need to be near an outlet to charge them. You just put the ring in the charging case and it'll charge it. Comfort factor. Sometimes watches can feel bulky. Remember, these aren't incredibly sleek devices. They're not as bad as they used to be, but they're still, on the thicker side of what people traditionally think of when they think of watches. And then rings are kind of a more wear it and forget it style device. One of the benefits of watches is you can see your data on it. So you don't have to wait for it to sync to your phone and look at your phone to look at your data. You can just look at your watch. So if you're riding a bike or you're jogging or you're walking around, on the watch itself, you can see your heart rate. The ring does not allow you to do that. You'll see the data after the fact. Just a couple reviews for user sentiment. I put some quotes in here, but my watch is a tiny computer. My ring is just a health guardian. I thought that sounded funny. I stopped wearing my watch because the green light kept waking me up. The ring is dark and quiet. I've experienced that. And then if you want to leave your phone at home, get a watch. If you always have your phone with you, get a ring. That also makes a certain amount of sense to me because one of the benefits of watches is you are able to see all the information on it, albeit on a tiny screen that's not as easy to navigate as your phone. So if you want a tool to do things, a watch makes sense. If you just want a tool to kind of forget about it and measure things, then a ring would make sense. And again, if you don't have one already, you've lived many, many years without these. They're not a necessity. They're more of a interesting to have or a fun to have, or even a useful to have device. The last checklist I'd definitely say is if you have an iPhone, Apple Watch makes a lot of sense. If you have an Android phone, you can't have an Apple Watch kind of thing. So if you have a Samsung phone, Samsung Watch makes sense. Samsung Ring makes sense. If you have an iPhone, Apple Watch makes sense, is kind of the purpose of this slide. Just make sure the device matches with what your cell phone is. And then kind of pick your goal. Are you looking for just sleep tracking? Are you looking for something to monitor your heart? Make sure the device you get says and it does monitor that. And then this is a large spreadsheet, which we can talk about for a minute. But this basically gives you a short synopsis of kind of the capabilities, so the key health features on the right-hand side of the devices, and then also their price and kind of what they are, if they're a watch or a ring. And if Rebecca has your email address, you'll get a link to the slides, so you can peruse this at your leisure. Are there any questions as we're wrapping up? It's one of the fastest classes we've ever done. All right.
The Apple Watch Series 10 does not have a hypertension alert.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, but the 11 does.
Yep. So on the right-hand side, if you see things that are bolded, that means either it's the only device in its category that has it, or it is the new version. That is a new feature of the new device.
Okay.
Yep.
So the Apple Watch Series 10 verse 11, it has the same chip, it has the same core. So basically the only thing that changed was the addition of hypertension alerts.
We missed it by a month.
Yeah.
Tish, you had a question?
Yeah, hi. Are any of, I have two questions. One is, are any of these devices waterproof? So for example, if I have that ring on my finger, can I do the dishes with it? if I have a watch on my finger, can I take it into the shower with me? That's question number one. And question number two is, which device is the best one to monitor my heart?
Okay, so your first question, are they waterproof? I would say that they are all water resistant. The big thing is any of these devices, with the exclusion of the scale at the bottom, if you are swimming, if you are showering, if you are walking in the rain, you are supposedly not going to have any problems. The one caveat to that I will say is if you like saunas, sometimes just steam in general can get inside devices that are water resistant. But my experience with that was also a couple of years ago. So anecdotally, what I will say is from my experience, Apple Watch, OnePlus Watch, and the Ringcon rings, uh, I have not thought about water when using them. And I've been to beaches, I've been snorkeling, um, showers, saunas, whatever, and they have had no issues. This isn't something I think about whenever I'm washing dishes, for example. Uh, no need to take it off. Um, they're built to be in the water. Um, the second question was specifically on heart health. The best one for that would be either the Apple Watch, in my opinion, would be either the Apple Watch Series 11 or it would be the Withings watch, which was not listed on here because it is less of a smartwatch and more of something that wants to be a ring but is too big. But the Withings watch was built specifically for heart rate monitoring, and Withings as a company is pretty well known for their ability to monitor things like that. But if you don't want to think too much, I'd say the Apple Watch Series 11, or if you're an Android user, the Samsung Watch is also very good.
Okay, thank you.
Another question?
The Apple Watch 11 that monitors hypertension, does it simply give you an alert that there is a state of high blood pressure, or does it actually give you a blood pressure reading?
I believe it's the first. I believe it will determine trends overall to let you know about hypertension.
And
I
if you,
don't believe it's not going to replace like a cuff, for example.
if you already have hypertension, um, does it begin at your baseline blood pressure? Or is it gonna give you a constant warning that you have high blood pressure?
That I don't know. I think so historically, for things like the ECG, is it will specifically alert based on abnormalities. So it may know, hey, you have high blood pressure, but it would alert if it sees significantly higher than normal.
If there is
Um,
if it gets higher than than the history or the trend.
yeah, yep. So like for this is slightly anecdotal, but if my resting heart rate is 70, my watch and my ring alert me whenever it determines I'm not exercising and my heart rate gets to like 85. Whereas my wife's heart rate, let's just say it's at 85 normally, she doesn't get constantly alerted because that's her normal.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now and it does track trends. I think you can go in there and you can sort of set what your resting rate is. And you're prompted to set up a blood pressure log. So, but yeah, I think it's interesting.
And that makes sense.
Hypertension. Yeah.
What sort of warning does it give you? Does it sound a warning or does it light up? Do you know how it alerts you?
Yeah, so you'll get a little notification on the watch that looks like this. So it'll like a little text alert will pop up and it says possible hypertension, patterns related to hypertension have been identified. And so you'll just get a alert.
In the last.
Yep, you should discuss with your doctor.
On the last 30 days.
Something like that. You get a little notification that looks like that.
May I
Yeah.
ask a question? I
Yep.
see you have ECG up here. Is that the same thing as an EKG, or is there a difference? Over under key health features.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's the same.
Exact same non-invasive 5-minute diagnostic test.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, EKG is German, ECG is English.
Uh-huh.
That's a great question. I was like, let me double check because I've been
Yeah.
using them interchangeably, but I didn't want to say the wrong thing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So next up, boop, questions. Yeah. So these are useful. And with the hypertension with the ECG/EKG, it's also useful for you to be able to kind of look at the trend line and maybe even show your doctor the trend line so they can kind of have a better understanding of what you're talking about whenever you go in to talk about these things. All right. Yeah, so I thought I had another slide after this, but I do not. So any final questions or comments?
You answered my question about getting too much information on sleep by saying to do something with focus. And I don't quite understand what that means.
I can show
You
you on
know
my
that-
watch.
Okay,
Yeah, maybe we'll do that after the class then. Yeah.
okay.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay. Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you
Tim.
guys.
Another great one.